Hey guys, we're waiting for Trina and Sue Ann. We have you, Alan.
Okay, because I can't, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, because I didn't see myself on the screen. I just saw a still picture of you, not a video.
Okay, we see you. Were you hearing the music?
Yes.
Okay.
But you haven't started your video, Alan. It is just a still picture. You have to go down to the bottom and hit start video.
I did hit start video.
Is there still a slash through your video camera?
I went over to the.
I can see Alan.
Now I was over.
Maybe
no, it's just his. It's just a picture. It's not his video.
Oh.
Do you see that his mouth isn't moving?
For a change.
You look good. You look good, Uncle Alan. Just frozen right there. Everything looks good.
So if you want us to see, you go down to the bottom and where it says start video, the red screen.
Oh, for goodness sake! I can't get back to the screen. I went
down at the bottom where all your icons are. Maybe.
Oh, let's say hi.
I mean, it's fine if you don't want to. There.
Hey. I can see you moving. Can you see me now? Yeah, okay.
We can, yes, we can see you moving. Your mouth is moving. You're sticking out your tongue. Everything's perfect.
I can't see you, but I wanted to make sure that
Good
we started.
Okay. That was great. There's my other son. Zach, you got to take that background off. You know what that does. It's all like, wah.
It's no good? Okay, all right. I'll take it off.
I kind of like it.
I thought it was very...
That's very appropriate, right?
Yeah, I thought it was very...
All right. I'm overruled. It's fine.
Okay.
Can you see?
Hi, Trina.
Oh, you can see us now.
Yes, I can.
Yay. Oh, okay. Oh, that's Karen. That's Karen, right?
Karen, fresh haircut.
And I've got my girlfriend Trina joining me too.
Hey, two Trinas on one call. That's a first.
Here with me too. 8 miles.
All right. We're now just waiting for Roseanne's family. I think we're gonna get an ETA from them right now, and if they're not close, they said go ahead.
We're 12 minutes away. 12 minutes away.
Oh, they're in the car. Don't say anything bad about them. How close are you guys?
We're flying.
How close are you?
Like 11
12 minutes, the last I talked to them, 12 minutes away.
Okay, so are you okay if we just start? Can you hear it, Colette? You can drive?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we left the door open, just head on up.
Right, okay.
All right.
Put your hands there, you might accidentally.
So you guys can look at the camera when you're talking. You look here. The participants are.
Oh, there's Karen.
I can have the participants here.
So we're going to start with some words from Howard Caesar.
Howard Caesar was the minister in Unity Church of Christianity where we used to go. He is also one of the founders of the association.
Sliding back.
Association of
And on the
different
carpet.
religions.
Runner.
Get together and talk about how to work together. Anyway, we were so blessed to have him to be a part of this memorial for Brian. Brian was not religious, but he's a good man, honest, and really did a lot of things for other people.
Turn the light on.
So, and Howard was the only one that he really listened
Go
to.
turn the light on.
The spiritual world, whatever.
We're in shadow.
Well, Peter. So we're very blessed to have Howard grace this occasion.
Okay. All right. We're going to share the screen. Here we go.
Who was that? Oh, it's
was lovely. All right. Karen? Right. I think we have to unmute you. Okay.
Everyone,
Mom, you're on mute.
Thanks, Miriam. I'm a tech trainer. I got this. I got a little emotional, so, got a little distracted. Thank you for your patience. I made some notes, so I'm not going to be exactly reading, but hopefully stay on track that way. I converted to Judaism about 9 years ago, and like so many other things, my dad just supported me. Like when I was a punk rock lesbian in high school, and like when I insisted that going out on the creek in the middle of a storm and had a mask break, and like when I got pregnant at 19, and he didn't hold back on sharing his opinions about my choices, but he always, stepped up and loved me and helped me and supported me. He was a kind and generous and very loving father and grandfather to my kids. And he has literally bailed me out more than once. We shared a love of knowledge, of lifelong learning. He knew something about everything, and I am proud to say that there are currently people who call me a walking encyclopedia. So I have inherited that mantle just a little bit, I hope. We had many, many, many conversations, fierce debates, laughter about just so many different subjects. I have to say that I rarely got his numerous puns. I'm way too literal minded for them, but he was delighted when I did, and somehow even more delighted on the very rare occasions when I would actually make a pun of my own. I always felt very proud when I could make my dad laugh, because he was the punster. He was bold, he was kind, he was generous, also pedantic and infuriating. And I have to say that that's one of the things that I have gotten and really appreciated from Judaism, is that our heroes, our role models, our leaders get to be fully human, and with all that messy, flawed imperfection, and they still can inspire us, or even more sometimes inspire us because of their humanity. And my dad, Brian, he did inspire me, for sure. He made room for me to be dramatic and strong and brave and athletic and intelligent, and believe me, those were not small blessings in rural Texas, being a queer kid in the 70s. So I am eternally grateful that my dad accepted me for who I am. And my children, the fact that he welcomed and accepted and loved my kids was a huge blessing, and how he spent time with them individually and together just was lovely and so important in terms of how he brought things and experiences into their lives that they wouldn't have had otherwise. In Roseanne's obituary, she talked a lot about my dad's love of adventure, and it's so true. He really delighted in life, just was fully alive and delighted in the world, and really taught me the value of experiences over possessions and curiosity over closed-mindedness. Those are values that he really imparted to me that I carry with me. And he was a visionary. I know that preacher talked about how brilliant he was, and he really was. He was visionary. We talked a lot about all kinds of stuff, inventions and ideas that like weren't real when we talked about them and have come to pass, like the technologies that he had in his brain way before they were real. And there are ways that he was in some ways like too sensitive for this world. I really saw, especially as I became an adult and had my own challenges in the world, how he struggled with being a very sensitive, gentle man, and being so brilliant. So I'm sad that he's not here anymore. I'll miss singing with him. I was listening actually to Peter, Paul, and Mary this morning, a favorite of ours. I remember many, many, many times being in the car, singing Peter, Paul, and Mary, probably harmonizing very badly, but just like with everything that my dad did, just doing it with humor and gusto and a love of life and experiences. So, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully he is sailing away or skiing or eating or laughing or singing, wherever his soul has found itself. So thank you for letting me talk about him. See, I know I need a Kleenex.
Thank you. Oops, where it got. Dad used to say to me sometimes, "You're only young once, but you can be immature forever." And that's I'm kind of like Karen, you know. He lived his life like he was young. He wasn't afraid to be goofy. He had a great sense of humor and a tremendous lust for life. I can just picture him saying, "Are we having fun yet?"
I think so. This is just John here.
Yeah, he shaped the person I have become. And his legacy will live on in all of us. Dad was always up for adventure and willing to try anything, anything. He took me camping. He taught me how to sail. He took me to Astroworld and would ride the scary rides with me. We'd go crabbing, and we spent many, many sunburned days on the beach together. He also shared his love of skiing with me, as he did with many, many of y'all, teaching me how to ski when I was 12 years old. I ultimately convinced him to take me down a double black diamond run called the Widowmaker, which neither of us had any business being on. But he does describe how, as I inevitably ended up sliding down the hill, as he would say, ass over tea kettle, that I had a huge smile on my face. And that's him.
He loves that story.
Dad shared his love of music with me as well. It's as if he had his own personal soundtrack playing in his mind at all times, and he was likely to break into song at any moment, at anything that made his mind think of something. And he passed his love of music on to me. He took me to my very first concert, which was ELO, and he took me to many more concerts after that. I'll never be able to hear a Willie Nelson song and not think of him. He would sing "On the Road Again" every single time he would pick me up from ballet to take me to Francisco's Flying Pizza. He was also one of the most intelligent people I've ever known. It was like having my own personal Alex Trebek, or like Karen said, a walking encyclopedia. Whenever I wanted to know how something worked or facts about something, I'd call him. And sometimes I would learn way more than I had ever wanted to learn. He taught me long division when I was 4 or 5 years old, just because. And he instilled in me my love of knowledge and that constant learning and curiosity. Dad also left his legacy for me for volunteering, which I learned from his quiet example. He manned the phones at Crisis Hotline for over 1,500 hours when I was a child. He would stay up nights after work just to be a listening ear to others. But most of all, I will miss his sense of humor and his eternal optimism. He was telling jokes and flirting with the hospice nurse all the way up until the end. I keep catching myself thinking of things that I would love to share with him and tell him. He was strong like bull. I was honored to have been with him and with Roseanne, who's been his rock and his constant companion. Being able to tell him how much we all loved him and that we'd be okay without him. Dad, you succeeded in dying young at heart, as late as you possibly could, and you will be truly and dearly missed. Oh, that went well. Okay.
Oh, we got a box of tissue there. We're ready.
Next. Oh.
Guess I'll be next. If you don't mind, I'm just gonna read mine because otherwise I'll be all over the place. Brian was my husband, best friend, and my anchor. He introduced me to many of my favorite things, and we shared so many fun memories together. Skiing, hot air balloon rides, hang gliding, windsurfing, plain sailing, whitewater rafting. We traveled the world, ran marathons, hiked, camped, climbed hills, kayaked, crossed hanging bridges, sang karaoke.
Lots of karaoke.
Lots of karaoke. Dance and ate unusual things. We'd wake up in the wee hours to watch the meteor showers, traveled long distances to see family and friends, or a total solar eclipse of the sun. He was my adventure partner. Tissue. He baked me birthday cakes, bought me flowers, even planted them for me so I can enjoy picking them and putting them in the house. He gently and quietly comforted me when I'm in trouble. His loving, supported ways made room for me to blossom into my full potential. He often said, "Whatever makes you happy, honey." With him around, I know I'm cared for. He was very funny and comes up with a quick wit, even in his last few days. When daughter Janet and I stepped away from his bedside for a moment, and he heard Janet said to me, "Let's eat Roseanne." He asked, "Where's the comma?" And this he said while he was grasping for breath. And, you know, for those who didn't understand it, "Let's eat comma Roseanne." He said, "I need to eat. Let's eat Roseanne, have the dinner." He was a brilliant man with a bachelor's in math and master's in physics, and worked most of his life in his career in NASA. He's my very own rocket scientist. I miss him. Now when I walk after dinner, I remember him walking with me, looking at his watch, counting his pulse. When I hear an airplane fly by, I would hear him tell me what kind of airplane that is. "Oh, yeah, that's an F-14 or whatever." I would stop myself from saying "falling star," lest he'd correct me and say, "It's not a falling star." When I hear someone on TV say conservative, I'd hear him say, "It's not conservative," with a growl. He played with his words a lot. he would say condominium instead of condominium. Aqueduct instead of adequate. Barley instead of barely. And one time I actually used barley, and his brother Craig heard me, and he thought I couldn't speak English. Probably I couldn't at the time. I ran out of English anyway. But yeah. And it says sandwich instead of sandwich. I thought he was funny that way. He ate almost anything I served him, even those cooked with anchovies. And to those who know what anchovies is, you know it doesn't taste very good to those not used to it. Sometimes he'd say interesting. In the beginning, he'd say interesting. And he'd eat it anyway. And I thought interesting meant positive. Years later, when I heard him say interesting in the context of not positive, I said, hey, wait a minute now. He used to bring Filipino food to work for lunch. When his office mates asked him what he was eating, he'd say, squid balls, and you wouldn't believe how small they are. Although I miss him a lot, I take comfort in knowing that he's ever free. He's ever freer now in spirit than when he was bound by the earthly body. And I know it's just a memory away. To my honey Macbunny, I love you. Goodbye for now. And I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places. Thank you. Okay, next. Who wants to go next?
Who would like to speak next? I know Alan and Miriam and Josh had mentioned wanting to speak. Does somebody want to?
Oh, they're muted, yeah.
We'll go.
Okay.
So whoever's gonna speak, you need to unmute yourself first. Okay.
All right, I'm ready to speak.
Okay.
Okay. My grandfather, Grandpa Brian, he had me out many times and showed me so much love and had many experiences I might not have had otherwise. We went to far-flung places all over the country and had some of my fondest childhood memories together. He took an interest in my life and helped me to be better prepared in this world. I'm so grateful for all the times we had together. He enriched my life so much, and I'll miss and never forget my one and only grandfather. Thank you.
Miriam?
Thank you, everyone, for being here to celebrate the life of my dear grandfather. I'd really just like to start by saying how happy it makes me to have you all here taking time from your day and showing up. Thank you, Mom, for your words. They were so on point as usual. I miss you. Grandpa was amazing. He was loved in this life. He passed on not alone in his home, surrounded by loved ones. And his legacy will live on in me and in each one of the many lives that he touched. As I look back on my life so far, some of my fondest memories are the ones that I spent with my grandparents, Grandpa, Brian, and Roseanne. Grandpa has the best laugh. And he would never laugh at jokes that were mean-hearted and mean-spirited, and I always loved that about him. He taught me lifelong lessons, like being financially responsible. He nurtured my curiosity. He was the best grandpa anyone could have. I feel so lucky and honored to have been able to be his granddaughter. So many of my women of color peers I know would be farther along in their lives if they had had a grandpa like mine. And I feel so lucky even now to have him as an ancestor and an angel watching over me. I feel his presence strongly, and while I'll miss being able to hug him, I'll always have our memories, our conversations, and the lessons that he taught me. One of the best things about Grandpa was I always felt I could ask him and tell him anything and he would still love me. He always accepted me wholeheartedly with all of my flaws, and I think that that's a lesson we can practice. Love each other and accept each other. May he rest in peace. God bless Grandpa forever. I love you.
Who would like to speak next? You will need to unmute yourself.
I'd like to speak. I'm Zach Dorset. Hi, thanks everybody for being here, and thanks so much for sharing those stories and love about Grandpa. And I got to live with Grandpa and Roseanne for a couple of years when I was in my really early 20s, and just figuring things out as a young adult. And I'm just really grateful for the opportunity that I got to learn from Grandpa and really spend that time together. We had a lot of really amazing times, and for me it was just a lot of discovery and learning, and really made me the person I am today. And you know, one of the things that I really carry about Grandpa is that he really strives for what's right. And you know, from whether it's, you know, the grammar of a sentence that he wants to be right, or it's, you know, the policies or people's behavior around him, you know, and in power. And I really appreciated that, and I learned that, and I carry that as a young adult. And you know, I think that spirit's something that's gonna really continue to live on, and I'm really grateful for that. I just love hearing stories about Grandpa and reminiscing about just all the things that he taught us, all the messages that he had for us. It was a lot. And he'll be missed. Thanks. Godspeed. I know he's in a better place.
No, we're not muted.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak?
No, no.
Alan, would you like to speak? You're gonna have to unmute your microphone. Can you do that? We can see your lips moving, Alan.
Yeah, it just sent a notification.
Okay, I thank you. I got it now.
We can hear you now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, Brian had a unique role in our family from the time we were children and for all of our adult years until he became very sick. All of us, except Brian, were argumentative, and Mom and Grandfather Walter were even worse. Brian was our peacemaker, the cool head who helped us to become more civilized. We ate at my grandfather's house, my grandparents' house, many Sundays. We were polite and civilized while eating, and then when grandfather lit his cigar, he would make a rant of something or other, and then we'd start arguing. I remember one Sunday, we had dinner, one of us said something. I can't remember what it was or who said it, it doesn't matter. Then somebody else agreed, and another one agreed, and another one agreed, and then there was silence. We all waited for the argument to begin, but everybody was quiet. Then we all started an embarrassed laugh, and Mom said, "That never happened before." She was right. Trina and I once had a really silly argument, even sillier than most. We were trying to make a list of all the siblings in order of niceness, and I was trying to figure out which one of us was worst. And Trina said, "It's easy. You, Sue Ann, and Craig are all tied for worst. Brian's first, and I'm second." I'm not sure I agree, but let's not argue. He had another role in the family. He was sort of our Google search engine for facts. We would argue about opinions, but with facts, we would either look in a dictionary or in an encyclopedia, or somebody would say, "I'll ask Brian," and he'd give us the answer because he was astonishingly well informed about just about everything. I can't talk about Brian without praising Roseanne. I call her my little sister out of respect for her Filipino culture and because she is my sister. I love her just the way I love Sue Ann and Trina. They divorced, but for all of his sick and helpless years, she was there for him, keeping faith with their marriage vows, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. I love you, little sister, and I love and miss your little brother. Goodbye. That's all.
Thank you, Ellen.
This is Gus and my wife Joan. Basically, I knew Brian when we were, working together at Boeing or McDonnell Douglas, basically. But I got closer to him when we would have our monthly meetings. Every once a month, all the McDonnell Douglas employees would get together for luncheon. Retired? Yeah, retired, the guys who were retired. And I got closer to him then because I had a chance to really talk with him at that point. And he mentioned about Roseanne. I was always impressed how she would just make sure that he was taken care of when he was there. He was there sitting there in the right place, that he got the food that he needed. I was always impressed with that in that part. And I missed those meetings we would have the monthly meetings to see who would show up. And the ones that did show up, we had good fellowship in that point. So I enjoyed that. And of course, the pandemic took that all away from us. But I enjoyed the time that I did spend with him. And like I say, I enjoyed how his wife took care of him at that time. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Is there anybody else who wants to speak now, or should we show the slideshow? We can come back to speakers.
Oh,
you want to say?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say something.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to work at McDonnell Douglas, and Brian was one of the first people that I got to meet. And he's the one, terrible criminal. He got me into sailing. He taught us how to sail, and we had the regatta. And from then on, I was hooked, and that started my career in sailing. He taught us how to get out there on the water and race. And then I got him in trouble and got him a windsurfer. I took him out one day, and him and my husband went out and showed him how to windsurf. And I think from then on, he got hooked. So when he was done with windsurfing, we ended up with all his old sailing gear again. he came by one day and dropped it off. So we will keep Brian in our hearts forever. Thank you.
Oh, Luisa's there. She wants to say something. That one. Okay. Hey, Luisa.
Hi, I want to say something.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Tito Brian was a good grandfather to us. Well, he's not just a good grandfather. He's also an amazing teacher. He used to always teach me and Devonna everything he knows about math and science and etc. He's a smart and amazing grandfather. Every time that we go to Tito Rosan and Tito Brian's house, Tito Brian will always tell us a story and teach us something new. He always tells us about NASA and how amazing it was to be there. I remember those small parties we had with him and how good he is in singing. He always liked to sing Puff the Magic Dragon. We almost memorized all the lyrics in it. He's also very welcoming. He always welcomed all the people in his house. He was a very, very nice person. We love him so much and we miss him so much. But now we know that he is already in peace and there will be no pain in him anymore. And we're so happy that once in a lifetime we get to meet someone like Tito Brian who is amazing, sweet, caring, and understanding. We will always remember all the memories we had with him.
Thank you, Luisa.
Oh my God, okay. On behalf of my family, on behalf of my family, I want to say hi to everyone who's here right now for Tito Brian's memorial. I'm glad to be with you all today. Those who doesn't know me, my name is Angeline and I'm the daughter of one of Tito Rosan's sister, Angie. We may not have a lot of memories with Tito Brian, but I could say that he showed us love, compassion, and patience with the little time that we shared. I remember my sister and I talking to him when we just got here in America, and I remember how shy we were talking to him. We would stumble with our own words and speak so softly to the point that I know sometimes he couldn't hear us anymore. But there he was still, listening to us and trying to understand. I remember how I would say something and he would just start singing with the words that I just used. Or sometimes during karaoke, when I'm singing or someone's singing, he would just start singing along and I'm just going to be there listening and finding myself always being fascinated with his voice. I remember his laugh, his wholehearted laugh, especially when he's watching his favorite short, Trevor Noah. My mom also told me how Tito Brian was so tolerant and flexible when he went to the Philippines and stayed with them. She said that Tito has no complaints with everything that they put in front of him and put him through. My mom also talked about how she knows that Tito was used to being in the house along with Tita, and that we know that he was a bit overwhelmed with how we just started to appear one by one in the house. But he said nothing about it. No complaints or no anything. His patience with us is just undeniably amazing. Tito Brian was the sole reason why we're all here, and my family and I would be forever grateful for that. Again, we may not have a lot of memories with Tito Brian, but we will always remember him as someone who's kind, loving, compassionate, and patient. Fly high.
Thank you.
I can't say anything. We were somewhere in ER last night, so the time that I need to do my works and say something, I can't say anything about Kuya Brian, but he's a very loving. He's so loving, intelligent. I can't say anything. But one time he locked me out of the house. I was so new in the States, and I was watering the plants outside, and he said, "Bye, Noet," and he's going to work, and I said, "Bye, Kuya."
And then I said, bang. I said, oops. And another bang in the front door. I said, oh no, you didn't do that, Kuya. And I go and knock on the door, it's all locked. And it was gone, boom. I said, oh Lord. So all those fun times, and he will be expecting me to cook what's for tonight. And you know, he loves to eat Filipino food. He don't complain, he will eat anything you put in front of him. That's how I love my Kuya. He's one of my favorite brother-in-law. Wherever you are, Kuya, I love you. You'll always be here in our heart. Always.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, yeah.
Are we being heard?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm Lowell Duncan, and this is my wife, Michelle. And I got the text from Suzanne that Brian had passed. It was really hard to believe because I'd just been thinking about giving him a call and seeing how he was doing. I guess the lesson is don't wait when you think about calling somebody, call him. But I first met Brian back around 1974 when I went to work when I was a young engineer and went to work for McDonnell Douglas on a project that Brian was the lead for. And I was immediately impressed by his knowledge. He just seemed to know so much about so many things, and I learned so much. Having only worked in the field a couple of years, it was amazing to be able to work with someone that was that brilliant and really took an interest in a young engineer on a project like that. We became really good. Pardon? We became really good friends and talked about everything from astrodynamics to cars to motorcycles to we played on the same soccer team at McDonnell Douglas, and of course we became hang gliding partners. We bought a hang glider together and spent a lot of time learning how to hang glide off of the overpasses around Houston, just skimming along the ground there. We had some terrific times, and kind of lost track of each other over the years, but a few years ago we rekindled a friendship with Roseanne and my wife and myself and Brian, and it was just like old times, getting back together and talking and we really had some great times. Again, it's just, I worked with a lot of really amazing people, but Brian, I think, was probably the most brilliant person I ever knew. And he leaves a big space in his passing. And I feel really blessed to have known him and worked with him and shared so many, not only professional times, but many personal times. Like I said, it's just really a shock that he's gone, but I'm sure he's in hopefully a better place now, and I'm glad he's through the stars.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I remember at our wedding, this is kind of a funny story. I think Roseanne, I told you before, but the rest of you won't know. This is something funny about your friend, your family member, your father. You know how he likes to be part of a great story. And I had a Mason of Honor, and I didn't see this going on because I was quite busy. She would tell me the story later, and she sent pictures to prove it. Evidently, she and Brian kind of took a shine to each other. And one thing led to another, and they were cozying up, and I think there was even a brief kiss. And he said to her, there's a man out here that's taking a lot of pictures of us. And she said, I know, it's my husband. And later, and that was the end of that, but it was a wonderful story. And years later, not too long ago, she's still alive, and I told her that we had seen Brian, and she said, oh, is he available now? Because she's a widow. And I said, no, he's taken. However, and that leads me to Roseanne, I just have never seen the outpouring of love from a partner like I've seen in you, Roseanne. You're just such an example. You know, it was just a beautiful thing. It's been a beautiful thing to witness. I also knew Brian before I married Lori, and actually before I even met Lori. I had worked very briefly on that hotline, for the crisis hotline, and I was so impressed that he did that. And his background was so different. You know, he's an engineer, and I always think of engineers as being people that are into spatial relationships, but Brian was into special relationships too. He was so well-rounded. He was truly a Renaissance man, and I'm just so blessed to know him, and I'm so glad to share this time with all of you. I've heard so much about many of you, and I'm just really glad to be part of this, and thank you so much for allowing us to be part of your lives and part of this wonderful event. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks to all of you as well.
Sue Ann, if you're trying to speak, you should just do it through Trina's laptop. Yeah, that way we won't have that feedback.
Yeah, we're having trouble with my computer.
Okay, that sounds better now.
She just walked out of the room. I don't know how to leave. I don't know how to leave it. Well, can I talk?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In, I think, the 6th grade, Brian was in college, and he came home one weekend, and I was upset about something. I have no idea what it was. Asked me what was wrong and had an adult conversation with me. It's the first adult conversation that I ever remember where an adult sat down and just talked to me and listened to me. I was amazed, and he really had an ability to get you to share your feelings and not, whatever it was, I was mad, and by the end of it, I wasn't mad anymore. And then a few years later, I was in high school, and I took college prep, and our father said that girls didn't go to college than them. And Sue Ann and I, and mom was a secretary, and Sue Ann college prep, and Brian and Alan both came and talked to me and said, regardless of what your father says, you can be anything that you want and achieve anything you want. He says, you do what you want to do and succeed and chase your dreams. At night school and semesters at junior college, but I had a good career, and I was inspired by both my brothers, Brian and Alan. You want to say anything?
Sure. When I went into high school, I was a freshman and Brian was a senior, and I was taking science courses and algebra and whatever. And each time I go into class, and Brian was known as Brain. That was his nickname, was Brain. They just transposed the letters. And so I went into class one time, especially my science class, and Mr. Fisher said, "Oh, another Schoonmaker. Are you as smart as Brian?" And I said, "No, you don't have to worry about that." No. And Brian would be talking to us sometimes, and we'd just look at him and we'd go like this. We'd say, "Dumb it down, Brian, dumb it down." So we understand. It was like nobody was as smart as Brain, you know, it was like that. But I did okay. But every class I went into all through high school, there'd be one class that somebody had Brian. They'd say, "Oh, you're Brian's sister. You're as smart as Brian." No. Oh God. But he was fun too. He wasn't just all studious and we traveled together and
Yeah.
Rosanna, and we went to China. We went to.
I'm wearing my China shirt.
Yeah. We just had so much fun. We always had fun, no matter what. One time when we lived in Leonardo, I went swimming in a hurricane, and the waves were up over the docks, and I was just swimming away, and Brian came and dragged me out, and he said, "What made you do that?" And I thought, I just wanted to see. I was 11 or 12, and I just wanted to see what it was like. He said, "Well, did you like it?" "No, I'm glad you came." You know? Oh my God. He was always saving us from something. We'll miss him so much. We just had so much fun, always. Just love him and miss him.
We used to ski together, and he was so adventurous, and I'd be like actually skiing on the snow, and he'd be going over bumps and going, "Come on, get airborne." "No, no, you get airborne. I'm staying on the ground." He was a lot of fun.
That's beautiful. So true. So true. Thank you, sisters. That's beautiful. All right. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak, or we'll take over the screen and show the slideshow, and then we'll come back if there's people who want to speak after.
Great slideshow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Is there anybody else who wants to speak? Because we have some of the comments that people have written in to share as well. People who couldn't be with us but sent in emails. And yeah, we can.
Sure.
Here. Either one.
So hi, I'm Kate, Janet Moore's daughter, and I've been asked to read some comments that people have left. So this one is from Janet Montoya, is that how you pronounce it? Yes? Okay. Rosanna, I am so very sorry to hear that we have lost Brian. He was a wonderful, fun person. I have so many happy memories of times we spent with him. Yes, he and Gonzalo were soulmates. They hooked up immediately, as soon as they met each other. From that time on, Gonzalo admired him and always sought out his company. Take care of yourself. This is such a hard time for you. I know, for me it's been 3 years, but I am still struggling with it. Just when I think I'm fine, something comes up from the depths. But I always remember what Gonzalo told me before he left this earth. He said, "You have so much life left in you. Please, go live it for me." What a gift he gave me. I remember that every time I spend too much time in sadness, I pull myself up and go live life for him. If you want to talk to someone who understands and also loved and cherished Brian, please give me a call anytime. Best wishes, loves, hugs, and kisses, Janet Montoya.
Hi there. My name is Peter. I'm Janet Moore's son, and I'll be reading some messages as well. From Art. My condolences, the class of 61's condolences on you and your family's loss on the passing of your father, Brian. I was shocked and saddened to hear this very sad news. I'm sure our class as a whole is saddened by this news. Our class is not large, so we all knew one another. But had it been many, many times larger, we would have all known your father. We enjoyed his quick wit. We were aware of his dedication to the Stute, the Stevens student newspaper, and the all-nighters he spent as editor of the Stute to successfully meet the publishing deadline. And along with his work on the Link and the Events magazine, he did very well academically. He was amazing and will be well remembered.
So sorry to hear Brian's passing. We were high school friends and remember his great sense of humor. I'm sure he will be missed. Carl Satro.
Perhaps they are not stars, but rather openings in heaven, where the love of our lost ones pours through and shines down upon us to let us know they're happy.
So very sorry for your family. I remember Brian from high school in NJ and admired his intellect and wonderful spirit. My most sincere sympathy to his grieving family. Linda Hoslin.
The following messages are from a group of retired McDonald's Douglas employees, who met for lunch every month and which Dad affectionately referred to as the Old Farts Lunch. I'm sure I speak for all the McDonnell Douglas lunch brunch when I say we are saddened for your loss and that we will all miss Brian. I wish we could have met at least one more luncheon with him present. When we are able to meet again, we must do something in his memory. Randy Wavell.
I want to pass along my condolences as well. I met Brian Schoonmaker, as we called him, back in 1984. I remember his singular sense of wit as he came for support. His personal uniqueness
extended to the fact that every time I sat at his keyboard to fix an issue, I would end up typing gibberish. That's because Brian always had a Dvorak keyboard layout on the computers he used. We all learned quickly not to question this
Variants.
from a standard
QWERTY.
QWERTY keyboard, lest we were in for a discussion on the history of the keyboard and why Dvorak was such more efficient, and how
QWERTY
was invented especially to slow typists. I can't think about that today without hearing his speak in my head. I feel blessed by having known Brian. Scott Thompson.
I am so sorry to hear of the passing of Brian. I am one of those who attended the, before COVID, monthly luncheons when all of us former McDonnell Douglas Boeing colleagues plus spouses would meet and eat and get up to date on respective happenings. It was at those that I met Roseanne. Roseanne, I am so sorry for your loss. Your words in remembrance of Brian are indeed beautiful. As Randy mentioned, I hope when we resume the luncheons again, you will attend. You are certainly part of us. I wish you all peaceful days. Most sincerely, Diane Freeman.
I always remember every time he says whatever makes you happy. The Divana Precious.
Divana Precious Costales.
And to Louisa and Costales. Every conversation we had, I always learned something new. His jokes and singing, fun-loving person. Rest in power, Tito. Brian Schoonmaker, Von Costales.
Palam, big brother.
Paalam.
Palam, big brother. I will surely miss you and all about the history of the world, music, and most of all, the black hole in the universe. We love you. June Costales.
I love you, Kuya Brian. Rest in peace. My memories about you was wonderful and magical. You're a great man, loving with big helping hands. Thank you, Kuya Brian. Marisa Regai.
I will surely miss you, my walking encyclopedia. You taught me a lot when I was just so new in this humongous America. I love cooking Filipino food for you because you eat anything and appreciate home-cooked food. I love bringing
Pasalubong.
Present, because you're like a kid if you got one. I remember Aunt Roseanne will hide those muffins and you'll be rumbling at night without light, just looking for it.
I didn't hide them. They were just in the refrigerator.
For him, it's gone.
You're so funny, handsome, intelligent, interesting, loving, and compassionate. Too many memories to remember. I'm proud to call you my brother-in-law. You're the best. I'll see you on the other side, Kuya Brian Schoonmaker. Rest in peace, and please watch over us here. Love you, brother. From Mullet Costales, Everett.
What a lovely tribute to such a beautiful, brilliant, witty, interesting, giving, and loving man. Who else could be so witty in his last breath, I ask. Brian and you have always been our favorite special people. We are so sorry for this news, and we are so grateful to have shared a relationship with him. Brian, in life, love to soar, and he is doing it big time now in the next adventure. Until we meet again, big hugs, Roseanne. We love you. Michael Duncan.
Hi, folks. I won't have a good camera or microphone capabilities on my laptop today, so I wanted to share a few memories of Brian before today's celebration of his life. I first met Brian when I arrived at MDTSCO back in 1979. At the time, Brian was very involved with the Bay Area Council on Drug Abuse, BACODA, and very active with the BACODA Crisis Helpline phone counseling service. I had crisis intervention training from being involved in my university's orientation and residence hall programs at college, and I volunteered throughout Brian's recruiting at MDTSCO. Brian was involved in our training and also the supervision of the counselors at the crisis line. The work was emotionally draining, and I was only able to do it for several months. After a few particularly tough calls, I finally had to step away. I can't tell you how much respect I have for people like Brian who had the courage and determination to stick with this incredibly difficult kind of volunteer counseling for so long, and who also inspired and recruited other folks to also pitch in. I have no idea how much turnover there was among the crisis line counselors, but one of Brian's great accomplishments was being able to find and keep people to answer those phones for those most in need. My other memories of time spent with Brian are a lot more pleasant. Back in the 80s, MDTSCO had occasional sailing regattas in those little two-person sunfish sailboats out on Clear Lake. And Brian was one of the sailing instructors for all of us amateur landlubbers who didn't know a jibe from a jib. But as a lot of us found out the hard way, knowing the theories of things like lift and balance didn't necessarily translate into keeping those little boats from capsizing in the lake. Brian was a terrific engineer and analyst. As a young supervisor on the now infamous Air Force Space Operations and Planning Complex, SOPC program, I was very fortunate to have Brian on my team for a time and the benefit of his mentoring and wisdom. Though being placed in the position of working for a wet-nosed shuttle baby know-it-all like myself, Brian was always an easygoing, understanding teammate and always helped me with great technical and management insight into what we were really trying to do. I really appreciated his help and the quality of the analysis he was developing for our team. Brian had a great way of gently pointing out the better way of approaching technical solutions for our customers without much ruckus. When the inevitable day came that I found myself working for younger supervisors, I tried really hard to emulate how Brian had treated me years earlier, though I doubt I did as well as Brian did with me. Show of hands on that? There are several things I, and I'm sure many others, will always remember about Brian. Two in particular were his humor and his terrific laugh. Brian had a great way of looking at what seemed to be the constant turmoil and craziness around us on SOPC or the world in general, and seeing it with the eyes of a Mark Twain or Art Buchwald, take your pick, and just laughing it off. I will also always remember Brian's typewriter. Brian always typed up his notes, memos, and reports on his typewriter. Depending on your point of view, that constant clattering from his desk was either annoying as hell or a comforting background sound that meant all was well with the world. I don't know what happened to Brian's typewriter, but it probably belongs in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. Another fascinating thing about Brian was the flamboyant way he initialed things. I wish now that I had asked him how he arrived at the artistic styling that somehow turned into a simple B-S, into something that looked more like a combination of the musical treble and bass clef notes. In retrospect, knowing Brian, I have to suspect there had to be something In retrospect, knowing Brian, I have to suspect there had to be some probably funny story about initialing something with a simple B-S on so many documents over the years, finally causing him to embellish it.
Yes, yes.
About 15 years ago, I needed an additional inbox for my office desk for some reason, and went down to dig through the pile of discarded trades in the supply room. I found a set, and lo and behold, there was that enormous, instantly recognizable BS of Brian's carefully etched across the top. Brian is much missed, and I offer my condolences to his many friends and family, and prayers for their comfort. God bless. From Bill Watkins.
I think it's a true testament to Dad that people from high school, from college, from his work days all step forward to join us and send messages. Like that's impressive. So
Thank you, everybody.
is there anybody else who'd like to say anything? If not, we'll let Brian have the last word. All right. All right.
I'm tired and I wanna go to bed. I had a little drink about an hour ago, and it went right to my head. Wherever I may roam, or land or sea of foam, you can always hear me singing this song. Show me the way to go home.
Oh, yeah. That's lovely, honey.
I have made a recording of this as well, so I can share that with anybody who wants the whole program. Thank you all. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
God bless.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for organizing this. Thanks for
Thanks so much for including us.
We love you.